And I welcome everyone to May 15th. We're halfway through this month. Can you believe it? Welcome to, as many of you know, my favorite day of the week when we get to come and have a wonderful presentation and ask questions and learn things and feel affirmed in this journey on together. And today is not any different. Before we get to introductions, of course, I'll remind everyone to put themselves on mute, please. It looks like everybody I can see has done that. You can choose to have your camera on or off. Use the closed captioning feature at the bottom of your screen if you need that. And please feel free to put any questions or comments in our chat. And those are all the housekeeping notes. And thank you, David, for the affirmation that I am indeed a human. I really appreciate that. So I'll remember that the next time I have to fill out one of those CAPTCHA things online that says I am not a robot. I am not a robot. I am a human, as I think everybody here is, and we are going to talk about a very human topic today, one that I recognize is not always easy to talk about. But that's why we should talk about it more. Not necessarily to make it easier, but to find out what resources are available to us and to find out that we are not alone on this journey. And I won't steal any more of Laura's thunder because she's going to tell us why it's important. So let me introduce to you my friend, my colleague, one of my people who has taught me so much in life and who is always such a generous person. We have with us today Laura Gilman, who is a social worker. You all know of my bias toward social workers, and here it is today. Laura and I first met, can you believe it, Laura? 11 years ago, when I went to work at Jewish Family Services. As an older adult care manager, and Laura was the manager of the older adult care manager team. And I spent, 8 years, I think, there working alongside Laura and learning lots about aging. She has lots to teach us about aging, including about end of life doula services today. Laura has a great work history and a great life history, including work in hospitals, in geriatric inpatient settings, in oncology settings, adult daycare, of course, Jewish Family Services, and now she has struck out. I won't say on your own. I don't know if that's how you would describe it, Laura. Are you on your own?
I'm on
Um,
my own, but
she
none of
is.
us is. I'm on
That's
my
right.
own as much
That's
as any
right.
of us is.
Perfect. And so Laura's new title, which I love, and I think she'll tell us more about it, is Your Ritualist. And she is going to talk about the rituals, particularly those surrounding end of life. Is that a fair statement, Laura?
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Okay. Well, I will quit talking because she is going to tell us the best. So, Laura, thank you for being here, and we'll look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. I'm just going to share my screen. Here we are, and then I'll make it big. Slideshow. And as Kelly introduced me, the truth is everything I've learned from an aging client. And I would always say to my clients, thank you so much for teaching me. Like, this is how I learn how to age. This is how I learn to support people who are aging. And literally, we're all aging, right? We're just sort of at different stages of the journey, but it's the best way and it's the only way. Um, so my name is Laura Gilman. As Kelly said, I am a clinical social worker, and I have the honor of being an end-of-life doula. And this quote here is a quote that has really inspired my work and my life. Um, and it is by Chaim Potok, who's an author who wrote The Chosen. And he says, we live less than the time it takes to blink an eye if we measure our lives against eternity. A blink of an eye in itself is nothing, but the eye that blinks, that is something. Maybe my camera, a span of life is nothing, but the man who lives that span, he is something. He can fill that tiny span with meaning, so its quality is immeasurable, though its quantity may be insignificant. And when we think about life, there are moments that can go very slowly, right? And then there are moments where we arrive and we think, oh my gosh, time has gone so quickly. And end of life is a really powerful and potent teacher, about how we spend how we spend our blink of an eye. and kind of how we choose to use our energy and where we choose to use our energy. Oops. Kelly, I wonder. Oh, there we go. There we go. I switched. I joke, right? Who is this lady and why is she qualified to educate us on end of life care? It's a good question. You might be wondering it, and I think it's a great question. Kelly really shared a lot about my work history, but I share this only to say, I started in urban hospitals, in inpatient and outpatient spaces. I moved to an adult day program. I worked hospice. And then the last 12 years, I started as a social worker and became the director of social work, but I was at a local nonprofit working almost not completely, but much of my time was spent with older adults, particularly with Holocaust survivors. And end of life for them, there was a lot of learning. End of life for all of us, there's so much learning. Um, I always say in 2023, I had my second child, and I had a sense, and I share this because as I'm talking, you also might be thinking of these watershed moments where you have an experience, almost an expansion, and after this experience, you realize you have, a new direction for your energy. Um, I felt that life was sand, literally like going through my fingers so quickly after the birth of my second child. And I didn't have capacity at 40 hours, maybe, right, Kelly, sometimes 50, 60 hours a week of work. I didn't have capacity to do the most important things. And I didn't feel that my energy was being used in the most important places, making meals for our family, having the energy to read books to my kids at the end of the day, being the first face that they saw when they woke up from naps, walking them to school, all of the things that feel just maybe sometimes they feel like that immaterial. They don't feel so important. But I had a moment where I said, this is actually the most important thing to me. Like being a present parent is the most important thing to me. And so um, in 2024, last year, I went off on my own. And basically, I get to do everything that I did for Jewish Family Services, but just for myself. So I provide therapy, mental health counseling 2 days a week. And I'm in network with Blue Cross and Blue Shield and United Healthcare, which is meaningful because insurance can be a barrier. I do ritual and ceremony, so weddings, funerals, births, anything that helps us to mark time and really and blink our eye in an intentional way. Blink our eye in a really intentional way. Um, I do some groups and some training, and then I also do end of life doula services. So these books, Finding Flow and Sacred Contracts, I highly recommend them. They were alongside me as I was sort of taking a look. I turned 40, I started looking and saying like, is my energy going to the most important places and the most important people? And I think as I'm talking, I'm sure all of you are having your own probably, right, memories, experiences, sensations coming through your head of moments where you too said, I need to shift directions. An end of life is a very sacred time. And when someone is approaching this, it's often a watershed moment, right? Where we're looking back on the meaning that we've made, we're looking around us at the meaning that we're making, and we're looking forward and saying, like, what meaning do I still have left to make? And where do I need to focus my energy? Oops. Okay. So why? Why is this work important? And what research has been done on end of life? I have qualitative and quantitative data here. It's actually all pretty qualitative, but I have anecdotal data, I would say, and then like academic data. So Bronnie Ware, our first citation, was a hospice worker in Australia, and she was doing this work alongside people who were end of life, and she started to notice that they were sharing similar content. And she interviewed hundreds of people that was working alongside and distilled what they shared into this messaging. And they said, listen, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to me and not true to what others expected of me. I wish I had listened in more. People said, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. It feels so important, but like, I wish I hadn't been on that treadmill. I wish I had had moments to breathe, right? I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings. And I don't know if any of this resonates, but I'll just say them slowly. I wish I had had the courage to express my feelings. I wish I'd stayed in touch with my friends, right? I wish I had had more of that social engagement. That brings us meaning. Socialization and meaningful relationships bring us meaning. And I love this one because I love the language. I wish that I had let myself be happier. I wish that I had allowed myself to be happier. And I thought that was an interesting perspective. The next source that I bring is by two academics, Shai Davidai and Thomas Gilovich, and they did a lot of research, right, on people's enduring regrets. And essentially, people regret not living life to their fullest, bravest expression of self. So we regret not so much what has happened, but what we haven't done. You regret what we didn't have the courage to do. So I don't know if any of that resonates with people, but I think it's really compelling and interesting research. And and it's something I'm thinking about all the time as a 40, almost 41-year-old person. Um, and and I think it's something that helps us really clarify as we're living, like where do I need to invest my energy? And what am I not doing? And what are my fears around that? What's making me, right? What's kind of the shadow side of what I'm not doing or where I'm not jumping or leaping? And we'll have time for questions at the end. But of course, Kelly's monitoring the chat. So if anyone has questions or thoughts or anything to add, please know. We're all learning together. So what does end of life doula work entail? We've heard, many of us at least, some of us have heard of birth doulas. Um, doulas are support people who are present at these sort of like doorways of life, right? So birth is a doorway on the front end, death is a doorway on the back end. Um, and end of life doula work, it's really a social work model, although end of life doulas can be from many different disciplines. But some of the activities that we engage in are exploration of values and where these values meet or intersect with someone's dying journey, right? Like Kelly just talked about with the brain, is organ donation something that intersects and aligns with my values? This sounds crazy, but I'm saying it out loud to as many people as I can. Do I want to have a funeral when I'm alive? The paradigm now is we have funerals, we mark death once someone's gone. But how many times have you been at a funeral and thought to yourself, I wish this person was here to listen and like hear all of the beautiful things people are saying about them? Every funeral I've been at, I have thought that. I wish this person could be here to to be surrounded by people who love them and to hear these words of affirmation and love, right? So this is kind of the way that we assess our values and what our end of life might look like. So legal directive, we craft legal directives with people and we communicate, oops, there's some words missing there. We communicate them with their health team. We communicate their wishes with their health team. So I'm going to give an example of a client that I walked alongside for many years and how I'll share how our experiences in life and the content that we were exposed to, our journeys impact so much about what kinds of interventions we want at the end, what quality of life looks like for us at the end and throughout our life. So life review and legacy work, there are so many beautiful ways, especially with technology, which Kelly knows I'm not so good at. That's my growth edge for sure. But I have a lot of videos on my phone that I just like can't get off, including one of the client I'm going to share, Regina, that I just cannot figure that out. But my brother's very good at technology, so thank goodness I can use his services. But like, what do we want to leave? If someone is passing, do you want to leave voicemails for your grandchildren? Do you want to leave a voice message to them for their big birthdays, decade birthdays, for when they graduate high school? What do you want them to hear from you? What of you, our legacy, we know that energy doesn't dissipate, it doesn't go away. So, what of you do you want to leave for people if you won't be here physically? What do you want to leave of yourself? I've done things with families like mobiles, things hanging simple of items that remind you of the person. So like maybe someone has a special sweater. We can take part of it. We can take maybe someone's parent is a dentist. We could take a little thing of floss and I mean, what do you want that will be a living memory of the person who's passing? What can they leave of their spirit that is simple? It doesn't have to be complicated. Um, but the legacy work is really meaningful work. Grief support and counseling. So I obviously have training as a counselor, a therapist. So, every family, every individual has their own journey, right? With grief and transition. So being there for the family. Nutrition support is really important. And I put this in here. Kelly knows as social workers, we're taught really to stay in our lane. But the truth is, I found in my experience, nutrition is so critical at these doorways in life. So oftentimes, like my first question to families is like the dying person is being often cared for by a hospice team, but I'll say to the families, like Mr. Holtis, I would say to you, when was the last time you had a meal? Have you been hydrating? Right? Because caregiving is a physically taxing experience. It's a physically, spiritually taxing too, but physically, there's a lot that people go through. So even just while if I'm sitting with someone, we can make easy overnight oats and have them in the fridge, like something with protein and fiber, and making sure that people in this experience are supporting their physical needs too. And that has a lot to do with nutrition. Funeral coordination and being a funeral officiant. So I'm a minister, and so I'm able to both coordinate the funeral, which is something I did for a long time in my work at Jewish Family Services, and I'm also able to officiate, which is really meaningful. It's nice to have that relationship with families and the person who's dying, and then to be able to represent really their spirit, right, as we remember them. And we talked about this. Being a liaison with the medical team and any other ancillary services is another piece of end of life doula work. This is important. The goal of a death doula is not to alter the future, right? I don't have a crystal ball, I don't have a magic wand. Rather, it's to ensure that the time that we do have is as potent and presence filled as possible. So that's the goal, is to get as much juice out of the time that we do have as possible, to fill that blink of an eye with meaning. That's the goal. So this is a client. Kelly knows this client. She has passed away, and her daughter gave me permission to share her story. This is a woman that I had the delight of walking alongside for a long time. Her name was Regina Dahlman. She was a Holocaust survivor. Um, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about her story because it matters, and it impacted her end of life journey. So Regina was born in 1929 in Lipini, Poland. And in 1939, when she was 10, her parents and two siblings were taken to Auschwitz, a death camp, and everyone perished. And she was taken to a different concentration camp called Parschnitz. After the war, she was the only person to survive from her family. After the war, she went back to the house she grew up in Lipini, Poland, and like there were neighbors living there who kind of pretended not to know her. I mean, can you imagine? She was a young girl. She was a young girl. Um, After the war, she was 16, a 16-year-old alone in the world. And that impacted her. That impacted her journey, and it impacted how she engaged with the world as an adult, and it impacted how she parented too, and it impacted how we supported her at end of life. In the end, she became a nurse. She worked nights at St. Joseph Medical Center in Kansas City for like 40 years. And she worked nights, she told me, because she had to see her daughters on and off the school bus. She needed to ensure that they could safely, get to school and come back. And she had to see it and she had to be there, right? She didn't quite trust because of her experiences that the world was safe. So you can imagine how that impacted her at end of life. One of the pieces here, what does this look like in real life? I served as a liaison to a lot of ancillary services. So making sure that when she was in a nursing home, she had a fall, she had to go to the hospital and then went to rehab. When she was in rehab, making sure that the care team knew that, like, for instance, a shower room, it's like a big tile room with a big shower head in the middle, wasn't a safe option, right? Because it looks like a gas chamber. Like, that's not a good option for a Holocaust survivor. Making sure that they also knew that she was not going to take pills, medications from someone that was not her daughter. So just making sure that we had a plan and that we had that communication, so that her end of life journey was in accordance with her values and her sense of what was important. And everyone has their own sense, right? we can never dictate or assume that we know what someone's quality of life looks like. We have to ask. We have to ask. Um, I talked a little bit through the advocacy part, nutrition support, making sure that she had access to proper nutrition and making sure that her daughter, who was her full-time caregiver, had access to nutrition was really important. And it's something that can feel, um, it can just fall off our radar, I think. But it's, food is medicine and our bodies are machines. They need food. They need food. And it's easy when we're working a 36-hour shift, caring for someone or you know, um, being alongside them as they're dying. It's easy to forget to eat and drink, but it's super important so that we can be embodied in this experience of grief. Um, I bring this up because I think this is another piece that often we don't know, end of life care. So after Regina passed, her daughter called me and we had said, once you cue hospice, once you tell hospice that your loved one has passed, they will come quite quickly. And there's a protocol, right? They call the coroner, they remove the body. So if you need time with your loved one after they have passed away, you can wait to make that call. And that's part of, I think, the education piece too with families. You can wait if you want time. If your culture, family, spiritual practice tells you that that is a sacred time and that there are certain rituals that you do, you can wait. It's your journey. It's your end of life journey. You don't have to call immediately. So I went over, we called over a rabbi. We FaceTimed with Regina's other daughter who was in Florida to make sure that she could say goodbye. And a bunch of family actually came over and sat with her body and had some time to say goodbye. Legacy work. I think I was going to say, I thought we had a birthday party for her in COVID that was like a drive-through, whatever it is. And we made videos for her grandkids who lived in Florida. She had a really cute song that she liked to sing. Excuse my French, and sorry to the people who speak French, but she had a song called the Shit Song that she like loved to sing. And I have it on video, but I can't get it off my phone. But it was so fun and she loved it. And she was a nurse. So it was like just like part of her constitution, part of who she was. And we have so many videos of her laughing and singing and and that was her spirit. And our spirits transition and change as we pass. So having those videos was such a powerful way to remember her, um, and to really remember her essence, to really remember the essence of who she was. Okay. I just wanted to show these pictures because she was this cute. I mean, look at her, the nursing picture and her when she's getting married. I mean, we all live this incredible life. How amazing. We all live this incredible life. And we want to have as many stages as we can. I know, 4th of July. She was a very proud American. Happy New Year. Anyway, I just couldn't get enough. So all of this is for sure in memory of Regina Dahlman, who taught me so much about aging and about dying and about living and about living. So much. Okay. This is time for questions. These are sources if anyone needs these. Kelly has this presentation. I don't know if you'll send it out after Kelly, but if anyone needs anything, it's all here and Kelly has it. Um, any questions, comments, anything that came up for you as we were talking that felt true, anything that came up that felt like, I don't know, Laura, I have some questions about that.
Laura, I'll tell you, I learned something just at the end here. As you know, I don't know how many of the folks watching know, my family has a funeral home and a cemetery as our family business. And so that may be why I have a bit of comfort around this topic. But what I didn't know was with the part that you were saying about how you don't have to call the funeral home right away. You don't have to get the body going right away. And I think that's lovely to spend some time. And I'm thinking about our folks on the call who might be caregivers of someone with dementia, um, who I've heard it described in my career, as dementia being this long goodbye,
Mm,
because of the changes that our family members go through. And I think it's lovely that you could take that time to
mhm,
really be with your loved one,
mm,
uh, at what is an end, a beginning, a whatever.
mm, mm,
So anyway,
mm.
thank you for telling me that. I didn't know that, and I will go
Yeah,
to a very good question in the chat,
yeah.
which is at what point during life does one begin the relationship with a doula?
Mm, such a good question. I love that question. And the answer is there's no right or wrong. Here's what I will say. We live in America where everything is a commodity. And birth doulas are not, they're like just starting to get a little bit of coverage with insurance. And that's why I mentioned that I'm in network as a mental health provider because we live in this currency of insurance. That's just the medical world we live in. So right now this is a fee for service situation, end of life doula services are. So typically families call me when someone has received a terminal diagnosis. Um, or a hospice company will refer and say, hey, this might be a meaningful contact for you. And I think that's the other thing, Kelly, that a lot of us know only when we've experienced it. Hospice is amazing. I mean, I worked hospice, I recommend it with a full heart, and it doesn't cover 24/7 care, and it doesn't always do the coordination piece.
Hmm.
It's amazing, and it's not everything. So
Hmm.
usually people come to me and come to end-of-life doulas for support when they've received a terminal diagnosis, or hospice is already present. If, yeah, that's,
Laura,
yes,
yeah, Laura, I promise I can't keep my mouth shut, but
speak
anyway,
up.
I'm trying. I have been given an extended life, which has been very, very good, and so
Mm, mm,
the end of days it faces me every day.
mm,
But I'm trying to show people that old age isn't a death sentence, that you make it to be something positive. But I'm going to have to get your book from Bronnie Ware. That idea of what do I wish I would have done.
mhm,
I want to get that because I would like to do a presentation. I would like to do a presentation on just that page of that one
mm,
thing,
mm.
and to have people think about now when they're in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. Now is the time to fix that, not when you're on the deathbed.
I love that.
I love
Thank
that.
you.
That page was a great one.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that is so true. Right. And honestly, like I say this to my children. I have a 6-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. They hear all about life all the time. I don't know. Kelly may have to provide counseling to them further down the road. I don't know. I don't know. It's my first time being a parent. I don't know if I've messed them up or enhanced their journey, but I mean, we talk about it all the time. And you know what? Death is it's such a potent teacher. Thank goodness my daughter was able to meet one of my grandmothers. She literally, if I knew how to incorporate a video, she literally, I say she danced her off the earth. She was in her room dancing to Mamo, just doing it as if it was so natural. And she remembered she was 3. And she says, I remember dancing when Mamo was dying. And at the funeral, she said to me, is Mamo, she pointed to the casket. I didn't really know that she was like, she's a wise young spirit. I didn't know that she would have so many questions and I wasn't quite prepared, but you get prepared when they ask them. And she said, is Mamo in that casket? She asked me as they were filing out.
Mm.
And I said, no, Mamo's not in that casket. Mamo made Nana and Nana made me and I made you. And so wherever we are in the world, that's where she is. Like she is in us. Wherever we are, she's with us. We are her in the world. And you're right, it's such a great teacher. And the earlier we can learn from death and life and all of these life cycles that we're experiencing, the better, because it makes our life more rich
Yep.
for asking the
Wow.
questions early. You're so right.
Lovely. Laura, that was really lovely. I was just thinking of if you could sum up maybe the work that you do as an awesome human, but also as a death doula and as your ritualist, if you could sum up your work for folks who are caring for someone with dementia, with cognitive change,
Mm,
what would be the thing you would want them to take from today?
mm. I think the thing I would want you to take from today is it's a journey and you don't have to go alone. It's a journey and you're in it and you don't have to go alone on the journey. You don't have to go alone. Yeah. Thank you,
I
Kelly.
like
I
that.
love that. Next time I'll have a really well-formed answer because
No,
I'm a human, right? I'll have a
that was
really good one
great.
next
Some of the folks in our audience today may have seen we have a trifold brochure that literally on the front says, "You are not alone."
time.
So I could not have planned that better.
Good,
um, and that's
good.
part of why we do this webinar every week is that we want folks out there to know they're not alone, and that there are so many great community resources available. We're the Alzheimer's Disease Research Center, and that is
Mm,
our priority, I think, is to get toward that treatment and prevention and cure, but also to walk alongside all these people along the way. until that day comes. So thank you for contributing
Mm.
to that journey for all of us. Folks, if you have any questions, we've got less than 1 minute left, but feel free to ask if you like, while I let you know that this is really timely because next week's topic for May 22nd, I know I've teased a lot for the last year probably about Medicare's new guide program for dementia. And I've been promising you that I'll get somebody to come and tell us all the details. And finally, the time has come. So next Thursday, we have a speaker who will tell us about the Medicare Guide program, which is specifically for folks with dementia and their families. And we'll hear more about what that's going to look like. We've come a long way with Medicare coverage and Alzheimer's. 25 years ago, we didn't have the kind of medications we have now. And we thought of Alzheimer's as just this terminal disease and there was nothing really to do. And thank goodness we've learned more. And so Medicare is joining the club here about what can we do to walk alongside folks. So we will have that as our topic next Thursday, the 22nd. Laura, thank you very, very much for being with us. It's good to see you after all that time we spent together working. It's good to see
I
you
know. You all
again.
know how lucky it is to have Kelly Grace Loeb here. It's a good gig, and
Okay,
she'll walk alongside you. She'll be your
I
cruise
will.
director, even better.
Oh my goodness.
She'll be your
That's
cruise
great.
director.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Like
Thank
Laura
you.
Thank
said, if
you.
you want any of these resources, I have it by email. So feel free to send an email. And thank you, Mr. Holtis. And I did not go unrecognized that you said you wanted to do a presentation. I took note of that and it's on camera. So thank you, everyone. We'll be back next Thursday at 2 o'clock Central Time. Have a
Thank
great
you.
Bye.
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 Thank you, Laura.